This is a Geartronic Volvo FL10 that was sold by Peter Abbott when he was salesman at Duffields at Ipswich. There weren't many Geartronics, and Leggett's only ever had one in their whole fleet. It was a cheaper lorry than a normal one, but it was more complicated, and they suffered a lot of occurrences with electric valve problems where they didn't have gears, and eventually the gearbox gave up before it should have done, as just a manual gearbox would do. But this was the precursor to what we've now got as an I-shift, which personally, from driving experience, is the best automatic gearbox we have on the road currently. Someone could disagree with that, I don't mind. I've driven the automatics. A lot of them are slow to pull away, and at a roundabout, when you want to go, you need oomph. You don't want 2 seconds of sitting there thinking, well, is it going somewhere, or are we what? What's happening? But the I-shift is so smooth, it's just gorgeous, to be honest. They've got that right. So this was a good gearbox, but it was too technical. Perhaps it was slightly ahead of their time. I think Dennison's had one, John Goodwin had 3, Russell Davis had 3, but this was unique that Leggett's only had 1 Geartronic, and that's it. It was 1.25 miles down on the fuel economy of all the others with a manual gearbox in the fleet doing the same work. Now, you could have an argument to blame the driver, and that would have been the next test, wouldn't it? Would have been to put a different driver in it and see what he did that week. But maybe he was given it the big one to get it through the gears faster. But it was changing up when it wanted to. He wasn't doing it. And it was changing down when it wanted to. He wasn't. So I don't believe that was the driver. I think it was something to do with how the gearbox was set up. But they can be adjusted and altered. That's my mate Fred, who sadly isn't here anymore. His funeral is on what we filmed together. And I'm very proud of that film.
That's a good film.
It will be there forever. That convoy was mind-blowing, and we gave him the best send-off we could as an industry. What can you do as a tribute to someone who's not here? We're going to have a Foxfest Cup for him this year and a shield. His children are happy with that, to do it forever. So we will remember Fred. And I worked for Leggett's for a little while, and they were one of my chemical clients for a while. Rockhead now is one of my chemical customers. He had C35 AVG as his own truck in Leggett's colours. He's still trucking. Very interesting man, actually. And that's Dick Leggett, who was one of the directors of the company. Bertie Leggett had 5 sons and 5 daughters. Ray was Dick's father, who took on basically the maintenance, the workshop side of the business, as did Dick when he'd done his driving. When Ray was no longer with us, Dick took over running the workshop side of the fleet. There's a lot involved in trucks, you know, when you've got a lot of trucks. Tax discs, tachograph calibrations, fire extinguishers, MOTs, the 6-week, 8-week servicing of all the trailers and trucks. That's a job on its own, to just have a schedule and make sure you get them in. Sadly, he's not here either. His son Wayne has gone into the building trade after driving, but he's helped me with my book. And his 2 sons, Brad, one of them's at Gold Star now, and the other one has gone, I don't know where he's I don't know what Wayne, he used to work, he was a mechanic, he used to look after my trucks. Lewis. That's the automatic in the HQ at Woolpit. That building was built in 1986 as a new HQ. It's got every brick in it that Armitage Brick made, and Leggett's used to cart their bricks down from their plant to their customers in Suffolk and around. So that's that's an interesting, there's probably only one building like that in the whole world, isn't it, that's made of such a diverse selection of bricks. And then you just come and walk and look at it and you think, well, it's only a building, it's got no significance, is it? But that's not true, is it? That was their workshop at the side that became a warehouse. It's all still there. That's, I believe, on the Kings Lynn roundabout where the 47, I think that's the 134, where they join. I think that's Gary Hunt in there, but I'm not sure. There's a Leggett's little Scania behind. And they got into containers in a big way in 2000. They opened their own lift park when the customers demanded it. It opened in 2002, so then they rebuilt the back of the yard from the meadows, made it solid, had some heavy lifters and some smaller lifters, so they've actually got an independent dock, which is very clever. They can use that as a hub. It's very difficult to do timed deliveries when you're sending them onto the quay, when you don't know how long they're going to be on the quay for, and when it's windy and it shuts, you can't do anything. So if you've got that hub, and when the boat comes in, you could get 100 boxes off the quay today, day and night, and bring them into Woolpit. You're not paying quay rent, And you've now got the flexibility that box is in your depot and you can load it when you want. That was a key economic regional thing, and it's right beside the A14 at Woolpit. It's 2 minutes off the main drag. That's where you want a truck, isn't it? Not in some back end of 15 minutes off a main road. It's just a waste of time. And Jim Farrow, who owns this lorry now, he bought this lorry from Leggett's to use as a shunter. He bought this truck basically as a banger when Leggett's finished with it, to shunt trailers around within Poundfield's plant. And then when he didn't want it anymore, what do you do with it? And it sat about, and then Sarah used it for her. Sarah used to have a warehouse in here doing medical supplies, and that's what this is doing here. It's having the trailer being loaded ready for the night trunk, just up there. And then he's got this lorry he doesn't really want, and he's decided to do it up to the same standards as his DAF. They were all done by the same people. He's got a DAF 2500 and a 3200 in the shed, which were the last 3200 ever built in '92. And then this is actually the restoration. James Newell did all Jim's 3 restoration projects. They're not cheap things to do, but when you've got it in bits and you come across problems, it's no good bodging over it. You've got to give it the effort it needs to do it properly, and then it will last a long time. So I'm a believer in paying the money, putting the time in, doing it once right, than skimping over it cheap, not doing things that then become a problem. It's false economy, isn't it? But James Newell's father was James Newell, who was originally a truck salesman at Henley's selling guys. There's a tie-up there with Leggett's because he took them their first guy and they ended up buying it. But he was more interested in bodybuilding. He worked for plumbers at Blakenham, who put the bed in Russell Davis 110 and Leggett's Scania 80, the first 80 they ever had. GCF 555J, you're going to tell me I'm wrong? That Ken Wilding had. And that revolutionised transport. Up to then they'd been staying in digs, but now he got a bed behind him he could fold down and sleep in it wherever he stopped. It was more efficient. But James is now running his father's business because he ended up leaving plumbers and setting up on his own as a bodybuilder. James Newell is retired. He's a good friend of Jim's. There's a bit of a tie-up there. But I took these of the project in its... because now we can look at this. I find it interesting to be able to say, this is what it was new, this is how it was as a shunter, this is it being rebuilt, and we can see what it is now. We don't want pictures now because we can look at it. So that's only down the road on Parkside's estate, and they had problems with, this is what took the time, this chassis wasn't as strong, it was more rusty than they thought, so they was shot blasted and they need to put a lot of work into getting, where the spring hangers join, it was weak, although it hasn't actually got springs, so I don't, as in it's got air, it's on air suspension, but I still call them a spring hanger. But you can see what state it was in when you actually get it. That's behind the cab exhaust, with no catwalk, still black. This was May 17 I took these pictures. No battery lid. Susies. Does everyone know what Susies are? We talk about Susies every day. That's what takes the air from your unit to your trailer to make the brakes work.
But why are they called Susies?
Nobody knows the answer to the question. Does anybody know the answer to the question? That's a title for a song, isn't it? If you knew Susie like I knew Susie. Why is a Susie called a Susie?
Yeah.
Because it bears no logic whatsoever. It's a springy wire. But it isn't wire, it's made of plastic. So what is the logic? No idea is the answer. There's the front with the bunk folded up. You can see the wood underneath the bed. No bumper. Still black. It's inside the cab again with the famous wraparound dash that a lot of people swore about, but it brought it closer to you as a driver, but it made cross cab access harder. Most trucks now have got a flat floor. You can walk from that side to that side. That's a joke in here. You can't. It's quite, you need to be quite supple and small to be able to do anything to get yourself out of the bed, up, down, seat, get dressed, go. But that's what we had. We got on with it. Folgers went all over Europe in these. These, to me, were designed as a shopping trolley for Tesco's to come from Northampton to their shop in Stowmarket and go back again. They weren't designed to sleep in, But the governor wanted it all, didn't he? He wanted a cheap lorry that was reliable and light and economic, that the driver could use, but these were not designed for 5 nights out, not to sleep in at all really. The bed is to put some stuff on, to me. But they did it. You can see the state of the seat. The last time I saw this, it had no seats, and this wasn't on it.
Right.
I don't think it was sign written. I don't think it was. I'm not sure, but it certainly had no seats because they hadn't got them done. I'm not sure if they've been reupholstered or they're new seats. I think they've been reupholstered, but they certainly needed it, as you can see. London Borough Transport Scheme transfer. So that's been on there a bloody long time, is it? They came out in '88 to allow you to go in certain boroughs of the city, and if you hadn't got a plaque and you weren't registered, you could get fined. And that's evolved on into the red routes, the actual paying to go in the city now, aren't we, in London? You can't just go in, you have to buy it. And then we're back at the start.